I have some information that I would like to share with you about income taxes. I'm going to keep this very brief, and I'm also going to keep it superficial. So if you're just looking for a good understanding or a very general overview of what income taxes are and how they work and perhaps some of the terminology, then this video is for you. So to begin, income taxes, these are charges that the government levies against its citizens and businesses in the country in order to collect revenue to fund itself and fund government type projects. So individuals pay income tax on their earnings and businesses pay income tax on their profits. From this pool of money that the government collects, they will in turn use that to fund the military and schools and highways and all sorts of other projects, long-term things like Social Security and Medicare and things that are very costly. So that's essentially what income taxes is. So that's essentially what income taxes are and how the system operates. It's worth noting that the United States functions on a progressive tax system. This means that basically the more you make, the more they take. So I will give you an example, and I'm going to make up some numbers just for simplicity. Let's say $0 to $20,000, you have to pay 5% income tax on that. Then from $20,000 to $50,000, you have to pay 10% income tax. From $50,000 to $100,000, you have to pay 15% income tax. And anything over $100,000 is 25% taxable. So what does this mean? A progressive tax system, despite a lot of the misinformation that's out there and misunderstandings, the progressive system is the most fair system that we have devised. And the reason is that people generally don't understand the following principle. Whether it's me filing taxes or Bill Gates filing taxes, we are both susceptible to the exact same rates. Here's what I mean. The first $20,000 that Bill Gates earns when the clock ticks midnight and then 1 second into the new year, and he's probably exceeded that by about 1,000-fold. However, it doesn't matter. Bill Gates still only pays 5% income tax on the first $20,000 that he earns. Next, he has to pay 10% on the amount between $20,000 and $50,000 that he earned. Then he has to pay 15% from $50,000 to $100,000, and then 25% for everything over $100,000. So this is technically perfectly fair because Bill Gates and I are following the exact same progressive tax rate. It's just that when we get to a certain point, he declares liftoff and takes it to the moon. However, the first, let's say, $75,000 that we each earn is taxed exactly the same. And if I were to earn $4 billion, I would pay the exact same tax as him, the same way that I am now on my smaller amount, slightly smaller. Now, the same way that I am now. All right. The first income tax in the United States was levied in 1862, and that was to fund the Civil War. Here's some things about income taxes. States have income taxes as well. In fact, there are only 8 states currently that don't have an income tax. Texas is one of them. I came from New York. That's where I was born and raised, and they have a state income tax there, and it's a real drag to get a paycheck, and the federal government has taken taxes, and now the state has decided they're going to build a tax apparatus and start helping themselves to your paycheck as well. And I had the privilege of living in Pennsylvania for a while with a work transfer. And when I worked in the city of Philadelphia, I was also granted the privilege of paying a city tax because I was working within the city limits or something ridiculous like that. If you are like most people, you will fill out the Form 1040. I can attest that this is a form that has been tremendously shortened in the last 4 or 5 years. It never was too difficult, but now it's been made really simple. So please don't take your income taxes to someone and pay them $60 or $70 to file the return. You can do this yourself with a pen and 5 minutes and your W-2s that you probably access either online or perhaps your employer mails them to you. Now, a distinction here is gross income and net income. Essentially, the only reason, or the main reason, that we even have two different terms for the amount of money you take home is because if you're on a $500 a week salary, $500 will be your gross pay, and then whatever taxes you have to pay on that per week, the amount left over will be your net pay, say $410 or something. So please make sure that you at least give it a shot, because if you don't have complicated financial arrangements, you're not on some kind of paid stipend or on Social Security or workman's comp permanently, or you have multiple properties that you rent and you're on your third marriage and you have 5 kids and you have businesses, all of those things are going to make it really difficult to do a 1040. You'll need a much longer form and all kinds of different attachments and worksheets to work out all those different scenarios. So before you pay someone $50 or $60 for something that you could easily do yourself, at least give yourself an opportunity. Sit down and take a look at your W-2, take a look at the electronic form online with the IRS. As long as you make under approximately $65,000 a year, they will always let you free file, so you'll never have to pay for it, and it shouldn't take you more than 5 minutes. It is really that simple. So I encourage you to do that. Now, I want to talk about conceptually just a couple of myths with taxes, and it's very important that we dispel these, and I'll explain why. The first thing, and we hear this a lot now because there are changes being made in our tax code, we hear the phrase tax cuts for the rich. This phrase gives us the illusion that there are politicians and the only thing that they want to do when they get office is give huge tax cuts to their good friends who got them elected. And that's not entirely wrong, because the big money does finance campaigns. However, I want you to know this. There is no truth to the idea that lowering the tax rate on the top earners is detrimental to the economy. In fact, we know that it's the number one thing that spurs the economy on. In 1920, for example, the tax rate was 73%. People making over $100,000 paid 30% of all taxes. By the end of the 1920s, the tax rate had been cut to 24%. People making over $100,000 were now paying 65% of all taxes. So please understand that when you lower the tax rate on the top earners, it makes it cost effective for them to risk money. If you raise it to 73%, it's only symbolic, because they're never going to pay it. They're going to put their money in offshore securities and tax shelters, and they're going to let it sit there until the rate comes down again, and it's more reasonable that they would take it out and invest and this sort of thing. So the idea that tax cuts for the rich is something that we should be opposed to. The only thing that we should be opposed to is characterizing it that way, because it's the number one thing that helps the economy. And I gave you one example, but you can go through history, and this repeats itself over and over, and it's mind-blowing that we could still need to have conversations about this in the public sphere when there's a mountain of empirical evidence to support that truth. So I'll leave it at that. One last statistic for you, though. If you think you have it rough in the United States and things aren't getting better, and why bother trying, listen to this. 56% of all households will be in the top 10% of earners at some point in their life. Here's one more stat for you. The people who earn in the top 1% of all income, these are the people at the very top looking down at the rest of us. Those people are put into that list annually because the list changes very, very frequently. People move in and out of the 1%. So this 1%, if you enter that group, by the end of 1 year, only 13% of the people who were in that group at the beginning of the year will be in the group of top 1% earners the following year. Just 13%. So these are some figures to keep in mind. Don't get discouraged. The financial situation can be overwhelming, it can be intimidating, and it tends to look bleak when you're younger, but hang in there because it will get better. You'll learn more, and once you learn how to navigate the system and you can see what's really happening, you'll understand that it's not that difficult to be successful. All right, and I wish you luck.